Phase 4, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, is in the can. Phase 5 has technically begun at this moment on Saturday, February 18th at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. He's Travis Roy. I'm Michael Govier. There's no Eric Brancham. This is a special edition. This is the long-anticipated, highly controversial in terms of getting it going. MCU Phase 4 review and analysis. We're going to go through every project that was done in Phase 4. Travis, you have created a list in not chronological order, but in your preferred order from best to worst or worst to best.
In what kind of order was that? We talked about doing it in chronological order, and then we decided, let's do it in, because I made a list of, I ranked them, my preferred order here from worst to best. We're going to walk through all 18 projects of Phase 4, and I watched the new Ant-Man Quantumania this morning. I will give my thoughts on that briefly at the end, I guess. But I'm excited to finally do this. I love Eric, our co-host, deeply, and he loves us, but he kind of hates the MCU, even though he watches some of them, kind of to shit on them. And so he has a very smarmy approach to the MCU, as he well knows. And so he kindly is not joining us today, much to his delight. He's very happy to not be joining us. But so this is an opportunity for me and Mike to really dig into the MCU. We only ever did on this show, we talked about Thor Ragnarok, and that's about it. So I'm excited to, because it's a big part of my life and yours.
It is for you.
We're big fans of this whole thing they've been doing since 2008. So I'm happy to get into Phase 4 with you.
Oddly enough, I do understand Eric's point of view, though. Like, I watch this stuff and I enjoy it, but I also completely, not so much, I think the MCU is an absolute historical achievement in cinema, bar none. Just the fact that they've been able to create a world through many, not like 3 films, not a trilogy. We're talking dozens of films and TV shows. So that's so awesome for somebody who grew up loving whenever a TV show or a movie would reference continuity at all. That was, for me, I just came in my pants all the time because I love that about this. And even if I agree that part of the MCU's problem is not their problem, it's just the Hollywood problem, that there's a lot of sterile, play it safe, what the audience likes, will stick with this stuff. That's not, I don't blame the MCU for that. I just blame people who are cowards and afraid to create real art. And there's still art out there. There's still art house pictures that still exist. I think that's some of Eric's beef, and with Disney itself as well, being too much of a conglomerate. That's another issue. So I understand some of his issues, but I still watch this stuff and I really enjoy it.
I agree. I mean, that I understand. I don't feel the same, but I understand, because a lot of people feel that way about genre film in general. And to me, genre films are usually my favorite kinds of movies. So I'm often defending horror and superhero films.
That's true.
Sci-fi and the like. But should we get started? What do you think?
Let's play ball.
Okay, we're going to go from least preferred, in my opinion, to most preferred.
Let's be clear here, people. Travis did all the work. He created a list, so I'm going to play off that list. I do have my opinions, but kudos to Travis on this. Well done, sir. Well done.
It didn't take much, just tinkering, reordering. I did rewatch every single thing here. So everything from Phase 4 I've watched at least twice, some a few times, just to make sure how I felt about it. And after I rewatched everything, I did kind of retweak my list a little bit. So let's start with one from last year. My least favorite project from the Phase 4 is the second highest grossing film of the Phase 4 movies, which is Sam Raimi's Doctor Strange in Multiverse of Madness. This to me was a tremendous disappointment. We actually have talked about this some on the main show, so I won't go too deeply into this. Suffice it to say that for me, my main gripe with this film, or gripes, I should say, is that I don't feel like it's plugged into what was going on with WandaVision and Loki and other things that were happening that were being presented. I don't think it was, Sam Raimi very famously said, I didn't watch those shows, and it really showed in his movie that he didn't care about that stuff, because the lack of connection felt like disrespectful to me based on what everyone else has been doing. And then also Sam Raimi, who I ordinarily like, I did not think his whole Deadite approach worked. I was constantly reminded watching the movie that I was watching a Sam Raimi movie as opposed to feeling like I'm watching a Marvel movie. And I know for a lot of people that they really dug that because it kind of like twisted the new the Marvel formula for them. But for me, it took me out of it.
Yeah, I agreed with you when I watched it. You had watched it first. I watched it about a month after you did. And I remember it fondly because I really like, I didn't always enjoy Doctor Strange as much as a character before the MCU, but I really liked the approach. I mean, yeah, there's some Tony Starkish stuff in Doctor Strange. Some people have criticized that, like, oh, it's kind of like they're similar characters, but I there's various differences. Doctor Strange has this incredible, played by Benedict Cumberbatch. He has this gravitas to him that I don't think comes with Iron Man, which is fine because that to me separates the characters. And in the end, I don't like horror movies, and I was surprised like how horror it got because to me, Doctor Strange, it wasn't. You could make it a horror movie if you wanted to, but it had to connect, like you said, to the other parts of the phase, which doesn't make sense to me. It was about mysticism and and the multiverse, of course. We're into the Multiverse of Madness, and in the first movie of Doctor Strange, we get him, the classic scene where I've come to bargain, like he's out there in the multiverse, in the dark world, the beyond, whatever you want to call it. I know they have technical terms, I'm forgetting them, but I really just kind of tuned out by about hour and 15 minutes in. I did. And so I basically agree with you.
Yeah, it was just a little rushed and disjointed, which is a complaint that a lot of people have about Phase 4 generally. And I have to agree that, Phase 1, I think we can be generous towards because they were building something there. Phase 2 and Phase 3, very laser focused. The occasional misstep. I mean, I think it was the end of Age of Ultron where it showed Thanos open up the thing and he's got the gauntlet. It's I'll do it myself, and then the gauntlet gets formed again later. So there is
much
some
brighter purple that day too.
Yeah, tone down the purple. So definitely there was some disjointedness before as well. But to me, Multiverse of Madness is representative of the failures of Phase 4, which overall I'm very happy with. I look at this list, I see 16 projects that I love, and one that I'm indifferent about and one that I straight up disliked, which was Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah, I just feel like Multiverse was an opportunity to open more doors to other projects in the coming phase. Again, we don't know, we haven't seen Phase 5 yet, so we don't know how that's going to play out from this movie, which is the only benefit of the doubt I give it. But otherwise, I didn't want to watch it again. I didn't.
I don't blame you. I did it kind of as a chore. I mean, I kind of was I want to make sure that I have this feeling, that I wasn't just disappointed in the first experience.
The one exception I will say, the one part I really did enjoy is when, you get to see John Krasinski as, Mr. Fantastic. Now, who's down here, by the way, if you're watching live or seeing this later. He looks so perfect as a character, and I got so excited. I'm like, can I get more of this in the movie? Could we go in this direction? And they're like, no, we're just going to fuck with you, and this will never happen.
Yeah, there was these tantalizing moments that instead ended up feeling empty because you're like, oh, Professor X. Oh, he's gone.
Yeah, Captain America. Peggy is Captain, Mrs.
Captain
America,
Carter.
whatever.
Right.
Captain Carter, right. I was like, oh, sweet, this is awesome. I wanted that movie. That's actually more of an indictment of the film than I wanted to go over there.
Right, and that's another, and to wrap up my thoughts on it at least, that you are constantly wanting more of other characters and not getting a ton of Doctor Strange himself in his second movie is a problem. It's a problem. Yep. So moving on.
Yes, sir.
Did you end up watching I Am Groot? Because that was at number 17 for me.
I honestly did not watch it, so okay. I didn't even care enough. Did I miss something big here? I mean,
you did not. You did not miss something big here. These are fun little shorts, not directed by James Gunn or written by James Gunn, and to me that shows. It's bad enough. Well, not bad. I mean. Okay, each one of these shorts, and there's 6 of them, I believe, is about 3 minutes long. If you cut out the credits and all that stuff, that's a very short. Like that's a blinking.
Like a YouTube short. Yeah.
Yeah, extremely short. And somehow in that time, they managed to like do things with the character of Groot that I'm like, that's not my Groot. Groot wouldn't do that. Like, this is just a few things. I don't want to ruin too much, but for instance, like he kind of like kills a couple people or like civilizations at one point. Not exactly, but he thinks he does. Not so much a civilization one, but the very last episode in particular, he like kills this alien that he's dancing with for like no reason, and it just kind of has like these moments where he's vindictive and like harsh and weird. And I'm like, why is he such a dick in this
How is
version?
that different than when he was teenage Groot, who was like angsty, and teenage Groot, we accepted that he was kind of a dick because he was going through growing pains. I assume this didn't have that same charm, or
Well, I mean, I don't remember teenage Groot killing folk.
no, you're right. That's a difference, but he was a dick.
Yeah, maybe a bit of a dick. So at any rate, it wasn't like it wasn't like a Toy Story 4 betrayal of the character, but it was a
Wow.
but it was kind of like I could tell it wasn't the same usual crew. It just felt not quite like him.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So not missing too much there, but if you're ever, it's not going to hurt to. It's 20 minutes.
I got to take a
life.
Dump. Yeah. I mean, I'll squeeze it in.
Yeah. Squeeze as you squeeze it out. Gross. So sitting at number 16, I'm actually wearing a t-shirt for because I liked it. I don't love it. I like everything from here up. But part of the reason I revisited, felt the need to revisit Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, it was because sometimes that first viewing is your second viewing changes it. And my first viewing of Thor: Love and Thunder, I was like, this is pretty great. This is fun. And everyone complained about it. I'm like, well, maybe, I don't know. And then I went and watched it again. I'm like, yeah, okay. I see some of the issues here. There's like two movies shoved into one here when they need to focus on one plot instead of two, and a little light for all of the death and dying and grief, all the stuff that's associated with the film. And then there's just like goofiness, which is fine, but. And I'm sorry, dude. Like Russell Crowe as Zeus, I find extremely grating. That accent, I just couldn't.
He apparently found it during the shoot, and everyone loved it. It's like, oh, that's perfect.
Yeah. But there is stuff I love. Got more of Korg, which I'm happy with. I love the goats. I love Valkyrie, and we got more of her too. So there's plenty here to love. And I thought that Natalie Portman did great as Thor, as Jane
no
Foster
complaints
in this version. I wanted more of her, really. So and of course I was pretty happy to see Hercules be introduced at the end there. What
about Mr. Bale?
And of course, Christian Bale is like delivering a performance above the rest. You're right. Like he's in a different movie. I can just see he probably like lived underneath his stairs for 6 months in preparation for this film. Didn't see the light of day. You know what I mean? Like just overdoing it while everybody else is just showing up with like a Starbucks in their hand. Overdoing the role, but he was great. He was great in it.
One of the great things about Love and Thunder, I think, is the villain. Not so much his portrayal of it. His portrayal's fine. It's Bale. Bale's being Bale, and he's taking himself very seriously, as he should. Right. His daughter's been killed. That's part of the problem. So I would be pretty pissed, too. Yeah. But what I loved about Love and Thunder is this. It's an attack on deities. Yes. I dig that. I'm down with that. It's kind of like Thanos, where you're like, okay, he's a dick, but you kind of get his point a little bit. I love villains where they're not just villains for the sake of being villains, right? There's been so many Marvel villains that we could sweep under the rug. So that's one of the treats for me with Love and Thunder. It's funny. Russell Crowe and the whole sequence, with Zeus, that was pretty wild. It was pretty silly and funny. I enjoyed it. Maybe he was over the top. That's fine. I could roll with that. Stripping Thor naked was funny, and you're right. It's just a strange amalgamation of a film that does seem rushed. It did. It seemed like there was disagreements about what to cut and what not to cut. And I think we talked about this on our main show too, back when it first came out. And we talked about how maybe Waititi was focused on other things and maybe didn't give this project its full attention. I can't prove that, but he's He's been very busy and had tons of offers, and his career has skyrocketed, and well-deserved. We love Waititi here, obviously. But maybe this movie suffered from some of that. The performances are all solid, and in the end, it does kind of seem like two movies.
He said that there's like a 3.5 or like a 4-hour version movie of this movie or something, but that'll never see the light of day. And it shows. Like he just spread himself too thin here. He needed to because I wanted more of Christian Bale. I wanted more of Natalie Portman's character. And if you're going to do both of those threads justice, you kind of needed to do one or the other. I will say that this is 2 Thor movies in a row that Taika Waititi managed to wedge an orgy joke in there. So kudos to him on that. Kudos
Yay! Also, a classic death scene with Jamie Alexander. Made me laugh out loud, even though you're not supposed to maybe laugh at death scenes when she's dying. She wants to die to go to Valhalla. Remember, like he finds Sif, the big strong woman who's not Valkyrie.
Oh, is that the actor's name? Jamie Alexander?
Oh, yeah, that's her name. I got a good laugh out of that scene because everybody, people have to die in battle to go to Valhalla. That was one of the running jokes in the film. It's a movie I did watch twice. I wanted to double check, and I'm kind of like, I loved Thor. Thor is actually one of my favorites.
Mine too.
Or at least even before the MCU, I always loved. Thor's got so many great costumes and all the stuff he has and toys to play with, which you would think Iron Man has all that shit, but I love Thor. I hope I'm going to let this one slide, but I'm with you. I'm kind of like, okay.
Yeah. I would have liked to have seen more of him with the Guardians, and I agree that Thor is one of my. He's one of my absolute favorite characters, and because of the explorations of grief and loss and the comedy, but this one wasn't Ragnarok, and I guess it could.
Yeah, the Guardians are in there. We throw that in too. They actually were in this film for a bit. So
should have done a whole movie with them all together, in my opinion, but whatever. So my number 15, I guess I should have written the numbers next to this here. I revisited, all of the shows, and I liked all the shows, and I liked this show, but the Falcon and the Winter Soldier was my least favorite of the Disney Plus shows. I thought it was great.
Disagreement time.
Yeah, we had to eventually. I mean, I thought it was great, but I felt like there was just I don't know. There was kind of an energy that was missing. Maybe it's Captain America, the Steve Rogers himself, but there was just something that felt like it was missing to me. And then there were parts that felt a bit dragged out. The Sharon Carter stuff kind of threw me at the time, but now that I know that they're building up the secret invasion, I'm thinking that she's probably a Skrull, because that would kind of explain what's going on with why her character was changed so drastically. So I overall liked it, but it was. So I did have some issues with it. I thought U.S. Agent was great. I really liked what's Kurt
Wyatt Russell?
Yeah, Wyatt Russell. I really liked Wyatt Russle in the role. I really liked U.S. Agent, and a lot of people hated him and hated that character. Yeah,
well, they're supposed to.
Yeah, but people were like he had to get off social media and stuff. People were like being mean to him. I'm like, dude, what? It's a fucking character. Come on. But I thought I look forward to more of that character and that actor in Thunderbolts, because I think he's a really compelling character. Yeah,
and we saw, which we'll talk about, Wakanda Forever eventually on this list. We had the introduction of Julia Louis-Dreyfus into the MCU on this show.
Well, and she was introduced.
She was before that.
On this show, she was introduced in Captain America and the Falcon and the Winter Soldiers when she was introduced.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
We saw her again in Wakanda Forever, and then sorry, I didn't speak clearly, but
I misunderstood.
I didn't know her character as well. Like I wasn't familiar with who in comic book realm in lore. So
Lady Hydra.
Lady Hydra,
I believe.
Okay,
yeah.
I like the purple. That's fun, but. I remember when I watched this movie, I really was torn because I was really digging it, but I'm like, wait a minute, is this forced? Is this too? Because this show is about people of color. It is. There's a huge aspect of the historical oppression of people of color, and having a black man rise into Captain America would piss a lot of people off. Not that we agree with that at all, but we know it's out there. This is the fucking United States. So
and the hidden Captain America, the hidden Isaiah,
the older dude,
right? That had been hidden. Like so I really like that aspect of it. The fact that Falcon or Captain America, as a case, Sam Wilson couldn't get a fucking bank loan. I mean, like you're watching all of these other projects and all these other Avengers are doing very, very well. They're not struggling to hold on to the family boat and that kind of stuff. So I thought that was really cool that they included that kind of shit. I mean, it sucks, but you know what I mean.
But your beef is that it drags a bit.
I felt like it. I mean, again, I liked it. I mean, I don't have a huge beef. And
the energy was missing, you said. So.
Yeah, there's this. I just felt like there was some kind of. I just felt the energy was a little uneven. I liked the villains. I liked the fact that the villains. I agreed with their purpose. They're like trying to destroy borders and shit. I'm like, yes, I agree with you. And it's always compelling to have villains that have like interesting motivations, and not just like these black and white bad guys. You know. So there is a lot there to like. Don't get me wrong.
Wyatt Russell really pissed me off, but because he was so good, I hated his character, and I was like, this guy's, God, he's being such a dick, and he's not seeing things clearly, and it really pissed me off and made me angry. I remember how pissed I got about it, but that's great acting. Wyatt Russell, you killed it as U.S. agent, and I'm looking forward to more of that, but I'm also so much challenge, so much strife, so much difficulty for Sam Wilson in this show. And in The Winter Soldier, you know, Bucky's great. He's along for the ride. He doesn't have as many issues here. This is about Sam Wilson's character, obviously. It's called The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, but really it is about Falcon becoming Captain America, and who looks fucking awesome when he finally, when it reveals that suit, costume, man. I was alone. It was still like late COVID, I remember. And I was like, I'm in my house all by myself. It looks so good, man. So
I agree.
I would put it higher, but then again, I'd have to see what I would take down. But I didn't think it missed anything in terms of energy. I went along with it, and in the end, I think it might be a top 5 for me. So.
You know, and I'll say this about it too, is that this phase explored more the optics of being superheroes, like what it would mean to be that level of celebrity. And we saw that a little bit in Far From Home, but we see that in, you know, played out more in No Way Home, and you see that in Hawkeye. You see that in a few different projects, and you see it here. You see the way that that U.S. agent is exposed when he kills someone out in public, and you see the way that the people are reacting to Sam Wilson getting the shield and all that kind of stuff. So I really like that kind of realistic aspect to it. It was very grounded, the show.
There's a lot of projects. I mean, they can't all be in the top 5. I get it. So
exactly.
But it was also earlier in the phase 2, and I'm not phase 2, but it's earlier in the phase as well. And I'm thinking, I want to see how things play out here, and I wonder if maybe down the line you'll revisit this and bring it up a notch, depending on how things go forward. But like you said at the beginning of this, laying all this out, building from the early part of it, I might give a little more leeway to the earlier projects of this phase, because I think it's a little harder. It's so hard coming out of Endgame and the massive apex of that, and then going into this new phase. And with COVID, there's a lot of challenges in real life just to create this stuff. So maybe I have a little more compassion for the earlier projects.
Well, I think that's a good point. There's so much jostling around of the schedules and that kind of stuff when changing the corporate's plans with COVID. And looking at my list, I could potentially swap with my number 15 here, because maybe I like them both about equally, which is Black Widow. I had waited so long for a Black Widow movie. I mean, I thought they were going to do a Black Widow movie in phase 3, at least, like early phase 3, and they should have. And they knew they fucked up, so they were like, oh, okay, let's finally make this one, and we'll retro-con it and like wedge it into earlier in the timeline, and even after the character's fucking dead, but still somehow introduce stakes and new things that are going to carry into the new phase, like White Widow, for instance, most obviously, Yelena, her sister, and what's David Harbour? Well, yeah, and what's David Harbour's character's name again? Dude, Russia, whatever the fuck. I'm blanking on his name.
That was a highlight of the movie for me, for sure.
Yeah.
He was awesome.
And I loved the opening to that film. It was so dark and like rough. Like they're doing like Marvel's take on human trafficking and shit. Like this is rough. And so there was a lot of things about it that I really respected. Them kind of going, like having the balls to do. And I really loved the interaction of Rachel Weisz and David Harbour and Scarlett Johansson and Florence Pugh. I thought them as a family unit were so, like, that chemistry was on point. I could just watch a whole movie of them sitting around a dinner table. I thought they were great. But on the other hand, there is I thought some missteps. I thought Taskmaster, I'm fine with Taskmaster being a woman. I don't give a shit about that. But like, how about some speaking? Like, some speaking would be cool. And talk about flat villains. I mean, I think that, I love Brendan Gleeson as much as anybody, but man, he's got to be. Could you remember the villain's name? Is he the most forgettable, worthless villain out of the entire MCU? Because I think he probably is.
Are you, just to be clear, you mean Ray Winstone?
Oh, is it Ray Winstone? I always get those two guys fucked up.
See, exactly. Look at that. That shows everything you have to say about that.
I mean, let's be honest. There is some similarities between the gentlemen, but yes, you're right. That was Ray Winstone.
Dude, you got Ray Winstone and Rachel Weisz, two outstanding actors who I really have a lot of respect for. And then this movie's like, to me, you're right. The family, they're great together. Yeah. They have a great chemistry. They cultivated that to a T. But the villains, blah. And that sucks because Mr. Winstone has so much to offer. And Black Widow, to me, would be like at the bottom for sure. I was excited about it. I really was. And it just is not memorable. It's not something I want to go back and watch. Maybe I should go back and watch it again. Maybe I should give another chance. There was just, I don't know. I'm not even sure what it is, frankly, because Black Widow has always been a character who I love. She's got these unique skills, espionage and a spy, and the things that she can do there's no parallel to that. There's certain things that you could have all the power in the world, but you couldn't be smooth and undercover and secretive about it. Being under the radar is a crucial aspect of trying to gain information from others.
Right.
But some of the beefs I had with Black Widow was just like, these jokes have been done before, where the kick she does, where she wraps people around her legs, and the super quick cut editing, where like it just looks. I mean, she's not she's a superhero, but she's not like a created super mutant. She's not a mutant. Right. She's not. She's a human being. This is always a beef for me when it's like human beings versus gods, essentially, I guess. Yeah. And that's another topic, I suppose. So I guess maybe I'm just not. I have some beefs with how Black Widow's portrayed and like how they can't decide what to do with her sometimes, which is their fault, not hers.
I was kind of indifferent about Black Widow and Hawkeye prior to the MCU coming out. But as the movies went on, I came to love them more than almost any of the other characters, in part because they're normal people. And I thought that they did a good job of showing how they could, as regular humans, keep up and with these godlike people. Like in the Battle of New York, when she just casually like jumps up and grabs that alien that's flying over the bridge and takes off with him, and that kind of, and like she's so fucking cool, and it's again like it's like they did it pretty believably. But watching this movie when she's literally falling like, I don't know, from 40,000 feet in the air and just jumping from thing to thing, I'm like, come on, man. I mean, I could suspend my disbelief more than most people, especially when it comes to the MCU. But good lord, man, like at least give me a semblance, like just an iota of reality here.
Yes. That you just nailed it. That's what I was really trying to recall, and thank you. That is it. You just said it all. Let's move on. Let's go to number 13.
All right, lucky 13. I'm gonna have to give up to Moon Knight. I definitely like Moon Knight a lot. And I liked it even more on my revisit. This is one of the ones that I bumped up quite a bit. It was towards the bottom of my list, but after I watched it the second time, I liked it a lot more. In part, obviously, Oscar Isaac is incredible in it, and he does a lot of work in this movie. And, Ethan Hawke is one of my favorite actors, and he sadly kind of underwhelms me a little bit in this show. He's not bad. He's Ethan Hawke. He's incredible. But I just kind of like, I don't know, just never really bought him as the character, to be honest. And I feel like the show suffers from not being plugged into the rest of the MCU at all. Like at all. I mean, like, you don't need to watch anything from the MCU ever to watch this show. And so I feel like, I don't know, fucking have Spider-Man swing through or something. They're buddies, like just have something, just give me a little bit of fan service here. But overall, fun, inventive, different, well shot, and again, even better on the second viewing.
That's a really good point. I think they actually disrespected the show a bit by trying to make it, look, you've got an Egyptian character and that's awesome, and that's well overdue. And so we're getting characters from all walks of life, from all cultures and all nations. It's awesome. We're getting all that.
Mm-hmm.
But you take it too far when you, like you said, it seems like completely removed from Marvel. It's almost like a show that was, if you didn't know any better, you wouldn't know it had anything to do with Marvel Comics or the MCU. It's like it's a bad guy and a good guy, and it's a superhero movie, but barely. It's more of like a mystical, fantastical, spiritual. There's all kinds of shit going on here. Gods and psychological, of course. And you're right. It would have been a nice touch to ground it within the world. And I'm sure we're going to see Moon Knight. It's going to be all brought together. So we'll have patience. We understand that in the show. And I don't want to keep qualifying that because obviously there's more to come with all these shows that'll tie things in. But I loved Oscar Isaac. He was incredible. He played two different characters, essentially. I mean, him and Christian Bale, if they could connect, if Christian Bale survives somehow and shows up again, I'd love to see them take on a screen in a Marvel project of some kind. That would be cool. That'd be great. For a guy who I had no clue about Moon Knight, I didn't know shit about Moon Knight, and I really love the get-ups. I love the whites. I love this outfit with the white tuxedo, suit with wrapped head.
He's fucking great.
That's so cool. I will say this. When I first watched the show, I was getting pretty pissed because I couldn't tell what the fuck was going on. Initial view, when you first get into it, they don't spoon-feed anything, man, and you're like, what? We're going back and forth in time. They're not telling me jack squat. That did bother me, but once I got to the end of the show, I loved it so much I didn't care anymore, so obviously it wasn't that important. Plus, Ethan Hawke was really cool to see him just be a really low-key bad dude who wasn't too... He showed some rage. He showed some bitterness for sure, but he was outstanding. It was excellent casting to have him be this arch nemesis to Moon Knight who... isn't even a nemesis necessarily. He's just someone who's trying to figure this world out and was kind of forced into a world he didn't want to be in. So.
Yeah. I mean, in some ways, you're right. He was an ideal nemesis because he was very sound of mind where, Moon Knight is not. He is a devoted follower as an avatar, as opposed to kind of falling into it and kind of being suckered into it. And both of their gods that they serve essentially do the same thing. The only difference is that Takrit, whatever the name of the crocodile god, killed people before they actually commit crime. So I thought it did make a lot of sense. And as far as horror in the MCU goes, I mean, the best horror scene I think so far out of the entire MCU is when the mummy is chasing his girlfriend, his wife, around that table, and he's up above after the mummy had just carved someone open. There's blood and guts and entrails.
Oh yeah.
It's a hardcore horror scene. It's a scary scene. I thought they did great with that. So awesome show.
Yeah, great show. Looking forward to more. By the way, I'm going to start mentioning the ratings. So that's what we do on our regular show. This got a 7.3 on IMDb, just in case you're wondering.
Now, speaking of horror in the Marvel Universe, my next slot up, I'm going to give to Werewolf by Night. I may have had a little bit of heightened expectations for this one. I'm not sure why. I guess the idea of Universal horror and MCU coming together, I may have just had too much. It doesn't... Shoot it on film. Don't give me fake cigarette burns in the corner. Just if you're going to do this, just shoot it on actual film. And maybe they even did, and it's just so overly polished I can't fucking tell. But it is a lot of fun. I thought what's his name, Gael Garcia Bernal, is awesome as the werewolf. I wasn't in love with the werewolf design. I think it's because he doesn't have werewolf ears. It's just like a dude with the Beatles haircut. So that I wasn't in love with that. And man, what's his name? Man Thing, watching it, I'm like, shit, he's a lot more like Groot than I realized. That all said, Elsa Bloodstone I thought was great. And the vibe of it was great. Having Michael Giacchino both do the score and direct made it so that he could have these transcendent moments where clearly the score and the shooting were very planned out together, and I thought that really looked great. And as far as stuff that operates completely outside the MCU, this I thought it does stand pretty well on its own.
Yeah, this just wasn't for me, man. It wasn't my thing. I mean, What we complained about Moon Knight maybe feeling like outside of this. How did this connect? Did I miss something? Like,
I mean, it doesn't. Not yet. It's going to probably with Blade down the line.
Oh, okay.
There's a Dark Avengers. We're gonna see Werewolf by Night, Elsa Bloodstone, Blade. What's his nuts that Jon Snow plays? I'm sorry, Jon Snow. I know that's not your real name.
What's his nuts? Kit Harington?
Yeah. So we're going to have this whole Dark Avengers thing form. Probably Doctor Strange should be a part of that, presumably. Unless he's busy with incursions. But
that's wasn't my bag, man. This wasn't up for me. But you know that this would be at the bottom of my list. If I haven't seen Groot, though, I haven't seen the Groot shorts, maybe that would go below it. So.
Gotcha. Moving right along to number
12?
12, thank you. And I always feel bad this is so low because it has been just torn apart on IMDb, like all female-led projects seemingly are. I thought She-Hulk Attorney by Law was so much fun. I just thought it was a ton of fucking fun. It's like got a 5.0 or something stupid on IMDb, and you look at like the rankings, everyone's giving it either a 1 or a 10. No one's giving it in between. If you like Marvel at all, I can't imagine not liking this show. You get so much of like random other characters doing kind of funny things like Abomination and Wong and these other people. And you get introduced to new people like Mr. Immortal. It's that are a lot of fun. The whole show is just. You get Daredevil. I mean, you get like all these great people, and it's just like slice of life stuff. Did you ever want to watch a superhero take out the garbage? No, then skip this show. But if that kind of thing you think is kind of interesting, then you might like this show. It's very kind of prosaic in some ways, and like she goes to fucking therapy and shit. Like it's great. I don't know. I just thought it was fun.
Plus, you get more Hulk in this too. Hulk shows up. Yeah. So even if you're like, well, I'm not a huge She-Hulk person, the Hulk bridges the gap to She-Hulk, and how that goes down. Is that how that works, by the way? Like, I didn't know that's how that works, and I don't really care that his blood is this, serum that could unleash the Hulk upon the masses. And I kind of feel like that's a mild concern for me because it makes it seem like it's a lot easier to be the Hulk than people realize. But that's not for the She-Hulk's issue. It's just an overall concern I have for the entire universe where Hulks could be everywhere if his blood was able to be used.
Well, remember, he's only bled because he had that like restrictor on his arm that broke in the crash. So like ordinarily his skin is impenetrable and you cannot withdraw.
That's what I thought.
Blood.
Okay. All right. I forgot about that.
Yeah. So that's not the norm in the comics. Okay. That is what happened. And there are other Hulks. There's what's his name? Lee Angus. I can't think of his name. There's like a Amadeus Lee. I think his name is one of the new Hulks. Amadeus something. Amadeus Cho. Sorry, okay. It came to me. And then of course Red Hulk. There are some other Hulks that we're probably going to see in the MCU pretty soon, and of course Hulk's son Scar. So we there are other Hulks, but not a ton. I don't think.
That's fair. Look, the She-Hulk show was shit on incredibly by the time I watched it about 3 months after it came out, and I loved it. I really enjoyed it. It's snarky, and yes, it's fourth wall fest. A lot of self-referential shit going on, and I'm cool with that.
That's the comic. I mean, that's exactly how the comic works. So
good, then that's even better. I'm totally down with that. I thought it was a show that brought in a lot of elements, a lot more than I was expecting, with Wong showing up, and of course with Tim Roth as the Abomination. He was such a highlight of the show, having this challenge. There's so much philosophical, like, self-help stuff that goes in with the Abomination character that I wasn't expecting. It made me laugh. It was funny. He's got his own retreat when she goes out there, and she has this whole group session with all these other weird superheroes that we're not familiar with. That was hilarious. And then the final episode, which I guess is controversial because it's so meta in a way. It's maybe so up its own ass. Well, what did you think of the final episode?
I thought it was very clever. I could see people getting frustrated with it because it doesn't have a big, it does two things at once. It both gives you like the big fight and all the characters converging at once that you kind of expect to happen, but it's smart enough to be like, yeah, we know this doesn't actually make sense, so we're actually going to negate all of that stuff that we just gave you. So I thought it was actually pretty brilliant. I wouldn't want to see that over and over again in any show.
Oh yeah,
you get one of those.
You got to be very careful, not to overdo that. But the Kevin is an acronym. Oh, that was great, man! Such a send up of Feige and his name and how it's just associated with everything. It was funny. That was funny, and it was a send up of the final showdown, the final fight. This is how it needs to be, and like it seems so typical. That I think that was next level. But you're right; it can't be repeated.
Right.
She-Hulk is a funny show. The Law opens up a lot of avenues. I like the introduction of her. I guess maybe not her rival, but the woman who is pissed at her a lot.
Titania.
Yeah, Titania. That was fun. I like. I forgot her name as an actress, but I enjoyed her work on New Girl, and I've always enjoyed her. She's funny. So I like She-Hulk, man.
What's the other show she was on? One with Kristen.
New Girl.
Good Place.
Oh, she was on Good Place. That's right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think She-Hulk would definitely be in my top 10 at least. So it might even be higher than that.
It very nearly made it to mine. My number 10, I have to give to What If. I found What If to be very.
I think it's 11, but whatever. So
18, 17, 16, 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10. That's 10.
Oh shit. Okay. Well, it's your list. I was keeping track in my head. So.
Yes, 10. What If is my number 10. In a weird way, again, speaking of like the stakes don't actually matter because all of this isn't really happening. But at the same time, a lot of it is. A lot of it played into Multiverse of Madness, not as much as I would have hoped, but a lot of it did. And some of it played into other places as well. And we're going to see like the Loki stuff and the Kang stuff. I think some of that kind of plays in there a little bit. And I loved seeing fucking Spider-Man and Black Panther fight zombies. I mean, that was so cool. And again, also, this is the last time we really got Chadwick Boseman playing the Black Panther. So to have his voice for those parts, I thought that was really important and really cool. The idea of fucking this Ultron that had conquered, that had won and gotten the Infinity Gauntlet, like what a nightmare scenario that is. I mean, just I thought it was great. I thought it was brilliant, and I'm really excited for season 2. It was even better on the second round that I watched it.
Yeah, I didn't watch every episode. I watched a couple of them. I wasn't. I don't know. For some reason, I was like, okay, yeah, what ifs are fun, and it was an animated thing. I don't know why. I like animated shows, so for some reason the animation, like I'm like, okay, well, this isn't like as big a priority for me, so I feel incomplete on this, and maybe I should finish it is what I should do, really. So like I'm going to take it. You're right. I only watched like 2 or 3. I only watched half of them, I think. So I need to finish the rest of it and then give my final take on it. But when I did watch it, I was like, okay, this is fun. I like going in different directions and making a world that doesn't exist in the main realm of the MCU becoming a reality, at least on a TV show. So maybe it's better than I realized, and I'm not giving it its due.
And I mean, you said you wanted more, Captain Carter. The first episode is all Captain Carter. So you really get to see that, and Steve Rogers in a different light as well. The hero that he is without the super serum is still awesome, because that's one of the reasons I've always loved Steve Rogers, is because like it's not just what's in him, it's what's in him. It's the person that he is. So
absolutely.
I thought the show was great, and I'm stoked for season 2. And you got more Killmonger. You got all these voices back. Everybody except for Scarlett Johansson and Chris Evans came back to voice their parts. So that's a lot of actors coming in. Like Josh Brolin came in. I mean, like everybody came in except for those 2. So that's pretty cool. Okay.
All right. Well, hey, let's rock and roll. Going down to number 10.
Number 9.
Oh wow.
Are we at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Let's wait. Let's review the list so far. Go down from where we began, just 18. To remind people.
All right, number 18, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Number 17, I Am Groot. Number 16, Thor: Love and Thunder. Number 15, The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Number 14, Black Widow. Number 13, Moon Knight. Number 12, Werewolf by Night. Number 11, She-Hulk. Number 10, What If. And my number 9. My number 9 was one that drastically got moved down on my rewatch, because I really loved it when I watched it the first time, and I do still love it. I just found that I loved other things more, and that's WandaVision. WandaVision's great. I really loved WandaVision. I those first 2 episodes or so are kind of uneven. Once it gets going, it's amazing. I I am also left feeling a little bitter about the way that this character, Scarlet Witch, was prepped to do these great things and then was just so misused in Multiverse of Madness that it kind of, I think it affected how I feel about WandaVision.
Oh, yes. We should have talked about that. You're right. I'm so glad you brought that up. That really pissed me off. That's one of the key things about the film that really did bother me. I remember that.
Yeah. Yeah, they set her all up in this certain way and then just turned her into this fucking two-dimensional bad guy villain who's only concerned about her kids, and it's like, that's not quite. I mean, I know that she was a villain at one point, but she was a villain because she was like filled with rage towards a specific person. She wasn't trying to burn the whole world down.
Her family was murdered.
Right, she was trying to get Tony Stark specifically, and it's just like, I don't know. They just ruined it. And so then watching the show again, there is some great moments. It feels like Marvel in a way that some of these other projects maybe don't as much. It just feels very Marvel-y. And most, for me, the thing I love most about it is, frankly, the Vision. I mean, Vision is one of my favorite MCU characters, and I was crushed when he died. So when he came back, and then we got him in like these different ways, White Vision and stuff. I really, really dug that. So I'm looking forward to Vision Quest, a rumored, TV show that might be coming up starring him. I'm hoping.
Vision, yeah, Paul Bettany is an awesome Vision. I really hope that continues. I would hate to lose him.
Yeah,
I really do. Yeah, his voice is soothing even before he became Vision when he was
Jarvis.
Inside Tony. Yeah, when he was Jarvis. And yeah. I love Vision so much, but I also have really grown to love what was cultivated in WandaVision with the Scarlet Witch's character. It was just, it was an annoying beginning, like you said. It was also the very first show to roll out, right? So it's like, what are we going to see? A lot of pressure. Yeah. People were like, what the fuck's going on? And everybody was watching it because it was COVID and everybody was at home. So it was a show that had an opportunity to really set a standard. And I believe that it did set the standard, even if it came out in a way, like if you had to watch it, wait week to week to see it all, right? Because I believe it came out once a week.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, and if as opposed to like binging it later, which I did, that would have been more frustrating for me, I bet. But being able to binge it, I was able to move forward. And Catherine Hahn was, she was having a ball, just being a total bozo. Yeah. She killed it. She crushed it.
She did.
Yeah, and she was a key aspect of a villain who was funny but menacing and had all the reasons to be pissed off and to really take advantage of their power. She's a real threat, and these are really, really powerful beings, just the two of them.
Yeah.
So,
and
I loved it.
It also reintroduced characters from other elements. We got Randall Park as Jimmy Woo, who we'd seen in the Ant-Man films. We got Kat Dennings as Darcy that we hadn't seen for a couple Thor movies. And
Thors.
We got Monica Rambeau in there from Miss Marvel. So it was a really fun, cool way to like take these really likable characters that we haven't been able to see and spend time with a while and plug them in and get to see them again and have it make sense.
Well, that's what's an indictment of the other shows we were talking about already, where they didn't include, like with Moon Knight and such. So they should have included more characters. WandaVision set that tone right away, but even if they weren't major characters, they were characters from other pieces of the Marvel world that they brought in immediately. And it set a tone like, oh, we're going to get a lot of this with every show or every movie. And that promise wasn't always fulfilled, which might be a little disappointing to some.
That's a really good point. And when you have characters like Jimmy Woo and Darcy, or even like some of the people from like the Department of like I'm talking about the guys from the Marvel show, the Destruction Department. Like you have all these different people. Like you don't have to like plug in fucking Thor. You can plug in these like smaller characters just to build that connective tissue like they did in WandaVision. So I thought WandaVision was great, just great.
Yep, I agree.
My number 9, I got to give up to the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special. I love the Guardians. Talk about characters that I did not know or care about prior to the MCU. I just love all of the Guardians
Kevin Bacon.
so much. Kevin Bacon.
You love Kevin Bacon?
My God. But like, talk about setting something up for like years in advance. I mean, like Kevin Bacon was referenced in both movies. And then for him as the actual person that he is to enter the MCU in as himself is so funny. There is some stuff about the special. I'm like, okay, the old 97s playing like music as aliens. I'm like, all right,
it's very Christmassy, whatever. Yeah,
it's a Christmas special, exactly.
Yeah.
But they did some stuff here that I think is important steps. They introduced that Cosmo, the dog, is now part of the Guardians.
You love that? I like that too. Yeah.
Oh, I did. Because I loved Cosmo in the first movie. I was like, oh no, they're supposed to bring him back, and he's a woman now, or a female dog, I guess now. But that's fine. What's her name? She's a woman from those Sprint commercials, or I can't think of her name. Vanya Valtrub or something like that. She's from like a bunch of cell phone commercials.
Oh yeah. Oh, she's got
great.
A whole world out there.
Yeah, she was in the Werewolves Within. She's really good. I'm blanking on her name. I have the power of the internet in front of me, but I just kind of refuse to use it in our show for the most part.
Who cares?
Sometimes I did just look up Randall Park's character's name, so I guess arbitrary about that.
By the way, it's called the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special. It's not a Christmas special per se.
Yes, it is the holiday special.
I just noticed that.
Although there is, but I think that's kind of like in keeping with like the Star Wars holiday special and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, this is exactly what that is.
That's what they're doing here, And I feel like we don't have that much time left with Dave Bautista playing Drax, being that he's very publicly come out a few times and complained about playing Drax. Like, I don't know who the fuck you'd be without this character now, dude. You wouldn't be starring in M. Night Shyamalan movies if you hadn't been cast as Drax.
Glass Onion, yeah,
exactly. But I also understand like it can probably start to feel confining for an artist to be playing the same person and over again.
Why was he such a big part of this special then?
I don't know, but I thought he did great. It was, him and Mantis together are a really fun team, and they were fun on Earth, jumping around, and great soundtrack. I'm a big Christmas music fan. Christmas music when it's good, and there's some really good stuff to pull from this as well. Just a lot of fun.
Mantis got really pissed on this show too. Mantis is getting a little bit more snippy than usual.
Yeah, she's coming into her own. She's getting.
I noticed that. Yeah, she is. She's well, maybe it's because Drax is so annoying too. She just can't take it anymore, and I wouldn't blame her for that. Yeah. I thought it was a lot better than I was expecting it to be. I thought it'd be just total trash, like the original Star Wars holiday special. But this is definitely much better than that. And it was worth watching. I'm glad I watched it. The Kevin Bacon thing, goofy. Way to mix it all in. Good show, nice little show for the holidays, and it's setting up the new movie, which will be out in May.
Yeah. So. Definitely loved it. Number 7, I got to give up to Miss Marvel. I thought Miss Marvel was fantastic. And again, just kind of bombed on the IMDb ratings and whatnot. But this character I thought was a lot of fun. I loved the music that they used. I thought that the acting was great. The first episode, I remember watching the first episode and went, oh, this sucks. This is not going to be good. And I really turned around on it. And the second viewing, I liked the show even better. I just thought that they really nailed it with this one.
Ms. Marvel. I watched the whole thing. Teenagers could be a little bit annoying, I suppose. These are kids, they're not adults. So that might bother some people initially. I was a teenager once, so I should have some appreciation. Yeah, I was. Empathy for those people. This, I don't know. This definitely isn't in my top 10. I'm surprised you put it this high. I think it's interesting. I did watch it and feel like, oh, she's quirky and funny, and the relationship with her buddy, who's the super genius who moves away to go to California, is fun. Good chemistry there. This family that's got secrets within it is cool. It's like, oh, what's going on here? And again, it also brings in a Muslim family, right? And the way that they tied in the whole history of being refugees from Pakistan and the whole, I wasn't even familiar really with, what was it called? Like, the partition. I was like, I had heard the term, but I didn't know the details. So I'm going to give the show credit for that because as a guy who loves history, me and Travis are both history buffs and more than that, you're a certified history person, but there is always an opportunity to enlighten people about past events that we're not aware of that affected a lot of people. I mean, the Holocaust is awful, but there's a lot of other events that really have hurt a lot of groups of people in the millions. And I was so glad to learn about that. So that alone, I'm going to give kudos to the show. It's not something that's forced. It's a very natural part of the family's history. And I think people who look at it like, oh, they're just trying to force this in because it's another cultural aspect of the world. Like, you're being ignorant. You're not slowing down and saying, look, there's a whole world here that I was unaware of, and I should be grateful that I get to learn about it.
Yeah, I mean, if you're the kind of person that like looks at this project and goes, ugh, a girl and a Muslim, like fuck off. You're not what Stan Lee was ever about. Like everything that Marvel has been about as far as the characters gone have always been about inclusion, and like he always set out to properly represent the United States of America. Like now, obviously, there's a lot of very white characters early on, but still, like when he was introducing characters of color and stuff early on, that was always his plan, and Marvel has stayed true to that. There are like 2%, 3% of this country are Muslims, and that's a pretty substantial minority of people. That is millions of people, and to have like and the partition, that was 1945 or 49. It was like in the 40s. It was not that long ago. That was in the grandparents or great grandparents' lives of people. So to have that included is almost like necessary. It grounds it in reality, and then other like kind of Muslim culture stuff too. Like when they're wearing like the Muslim kid and then the white kid are wearing like the halal and haram shirt or hats. Like that's so funny. So funny.
Yeah, and there's callbacks to Muslim discrimination and post 9/11 world where mosques are a safe space for Muslims, but yet they're being infiltrated. They're not. What's the name of the? I like that this was brought into the security.
Why can't I think of it's the Department of? I want to say Destruction, but that's not it. Department of not defense. It's like, but it's like the DODD or DO.
Oh, Department of Damage Control.
Yes, damage control.
You. Okay, yeah, that was cool because that made it, to me, it actually grounded in realism. Like, okay, there's this secret department in the United States, and they're infiltrating mosques they're trying to root out superheroes, but they're also using it to take advantage of it to maybe do other nefarious shit. And that was like, whoa, we lived that. That just happened in this country over the last 20 years.
Yeah, and we'd seen the DODC in the very beginning of Spider-Man, the first one, Homecoming, because this is the group that comes in.
Oh yeah, that's
Vulture, from collecting all that stuff. So it was cool to like bring them back because it makes sense to bring them back. It makes sense to have this department interfere and be part of the world. So again, like I thought the show was, and of course all the connections to Captain Marvel. So to have a separate character and still ground it in the Marvel universe, I thought this walked both sides of that line very well, and it was just delightful. It was just, it just made me feel good, that kind of show. So I like that quite a bit.
Yeah, I'd probably put it like middle of the pack, but it's solid.
Right on. So moving on to number 5.
6.
No, 1, 2,
5.
3, 5, 6. I can count.
All right.
Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. Man,
this
talk about fun and again representative, but like fun, just and feeling very Marvel, grounded in culture again, bringing back old characters like Ben Kingsley's character Trevor that we had spent time with before and unexpectedly get to see again, and showing that this character deserves to stand alongside all of the other, the new batch of Avengers that are coming up. Like clearly has like the personal history as well as the family history as well as like the power necessary to be a big swinger in this universe. Like this is a character that he's been around since the 1970s. I'd never fucking heard of him, and I'm kind of a Marvel nerd a little bit, but I'd never heard of him. And man, they really made a character that I really cared about and got engaged in. And what's his name? Simu Lee. What's his name? Simu.
Simu Lee. Simu Liu.
Just like an instant star. I mean, just owned that character, owned that movie. Awkwafina's great too, but man, like this just instant star. I thought she was totally fine, anyways. But
yeah, I don't like Awkwafina. That's my beef. But Simu Liu was fantastic. You're right. So
yeah, I thought he was really.
I thought
really good.
She was a little forced. it didn't seem natural, their chemistry to me at all. Although I really thought Simu Liu was awesome. I did. And when they come together and they're going on their adventure, I was like, could we get someone better than Aquafina? I just really believe that, and I'm going to stand by that.
Okay, I thought she did fine, but I can appreciate where you're coming from. She is, I want to say she's substantially older than him. That kind of like made me that she looks it, and nothing against it, but like I'm not. I mean, she's beautiful. I'm not talking about that. I just mean like in terms of like them like having this kind of shared history, and to also be aware. And I've seen this in other stuff before too, where you're like, wait, you're supposed to have like grown up together, but you're clearly like a decade apart. Like, it's hard for me to like square that circle. Because,
you know what's funny? I mean? They're 1 year apart in real life.
Oh shit, I was way off. I'm sorry.
Hey,
I'm sorry, Aquafina.
Who knew?
I guess I didn't.
She's watching. She's pissed.
I feel like a jerk. I guess maybe she's just been around longer and been more famous longer, so I just kind of assumed that maybe. I don't know where I got that from. Now I feel silly, but
it's okay. It's just your own instinct. Who cares?
Maybe I'm kind of hitting on what you were hitting on. That I didn't quite thought that. I thought the chemistry was fine, just not like romantic chemistry. You know what I mean? I bought them as friends very realistically, but once it kind of like tried to move into something other than that, I'm like, wait a minute. I thought you guys were like brother and sister, sort of. Like I just didn't really feel a romantic vibe between the two of them at all.
Okay, that's a great point. First off, yeah, no romantic vibe. Friends vibe, not
solid.
Bad. You're right.
Yeah, they did fine with that.
I guess when they get to the big showdown in the realm there that they're in, and she's, it's kind of like there's like some Rocky IV-esque moments, like training montages and like learn the weapons. Like everyone's got, which is I don't have a real problem with that. That could be done. It could be fun when it's done right. But she trying to like become something more. I just thought it was a bigger leap for me, and it stood out enough that I'm saying it. So that's my point, I guess, too. But Michelle Yeoh's in this, and she's awesome, like you said, and now that who she is with being on top of the world right now, with everything everywhere all at once. I mean, this is her time, man, and I'm glad that she's involved in the MCU through this. Yeah,
and the villain also, again, like a very compelling villain.
Yes,
he was not this cookie cutter. Like, what is your motivation kind of villain? They did a really good job with him.
Yeah, the history of the family was a very difficult choices were made, and it was very challenging. And it's a really, really solid film. It probably might crack the top 10. I have no beef with it being where it is. I'm cool with that. There's just so many other things where we're getting to a point now. We're gonna hit the top 5. So I'm thinking where we are right now, and I'm thinking about the things we haven't mentioned yet, and we might have some real beefs here coming up in the top 5, but Shang-Chi, that's a good call at number 6. I'm fine with it.
Well, do you know what your top 5 is? Will you be able to hit us with that?
Yeah, I could do a top 5, but let's do number 5, and let's go ahead.
Number 5 for me, I'm going to give up to the epic Black Panther sequel, Wakanda Forever. I thought this was well done. Speaking of like kind of having to work with what you got in the face of chaos, to construct a cohesive, emotional, well done story when you've lost your star, and present that movie and kind of still keep him in the center while also bringing all these other characters up to fill that void. I thought they did a really fine job. I thought that I don't know his name off the top of my head, but the guy that played Namor, he was great in the Forever Purge. I thought he was awesome in this too. Talk about a star in the making. I really want to see more of him as Namor. Could have been so cheesy with the fucking ankle wings, but instead he's a badass.
Tenoch.
Yeah, okay, that's why I'm okay. Tenoch Huerta. All right, well, he did great, and I'd like to see more of him. And I thought that Letitia Wright did well in carrying the film. I think that Angela Bassett's Academy Award nomination is well deserved. I wept openly watching this movie like multiple times. And I don't know that I've ever been in a more quiet theater than in the opening sequence where the Marvel thing goes quiet. It's just all Chadwick Boseman.
Yeah.
Black Panther. I mean, it was like I was in a church when I was in the theater and just had chills. And the whole movie, I thought a little lengthy, but really well done in my opinion.
Yeah. Okay.
So
well, this
top 5.
It's not in my top 5, and I feel bad just saying that because Chadwick Boseman is an incredible actor, and it's a fucking tragedy that he died. But this is a bottom line business. Sorry, folks. I know it's harsh, but we're critically reviewing Phase 4, and I watched it freshly too. It's still fresh in my mind. I didn't talk about it on the main show, so let me say a few things about it here that I didn't say before, and that is, you're right. The beginning is it's an opus to him and his death, and they acknowledge that. And of course, they couldn't deny it. But there's been movies that try to like just move on, and it has been done before in terrible ways. So this is a kudos and a tribute to him. And Angela Bassett, when she unleashes on everybody about what I've lost? Yes, it's powerful and it's legit. Yeah. It is like the sacrifice that's going on here is incredible. The arrival, the new enemy / possibly not an enemy, that I think that's where I get a little confused here is with you have this new group of people, this subculture under the water, and they're afraid of the world above water, right? But they also maybe want to be allies with Wakanda. But there's this connection that both have access to vibranium, which is a new deal. Like, oh, wow, there's vibranium underwater we didn't know about. And you got like the U.S. being imperialistic, trying to take over and scumbag their way. Yeah, doing what they do best. And France, yes, all these imperialistic nations, that's displayed properly. I'm not sure what it is, Travis, but I feel like there's a way to reform the relationship between these two cultures. And I mean, the way it ends up, how they're so angry at each other and they're having this big showdown and it's on the island and it's just a one-on-one battle between the two leaders and they're so pissed and they're so full of rage. And the movie is trying to push that like, hey, you don't have to be full of vengeance, Shuri. You can take the high road here, all right? You can change. This is another one of these things about, great power, great responsibility, Spider-Man shit. This is a common thread about you have a responsibility to protect more than yourself. It's about the people you are ruling over too. And I think this aspect right here, Travis, this is the key for me. And maybe this is what it all comes down to. I really, really felt that, first off, the return of Lupita Nyong'o was fantastic. I was so glad they brought her back because I loved her character in the first one, and I was sad that it felt like we weren't going to get more of that. So I was thrilled that she shows up. I actually thought she should have taken the mantle of Black Panther over Shuri, and Shuri should have been the queen. Shuri was the ruler. I actually had a conversation with somebody about this in real life after the fact, and they're like, yeah, you know what? I kind of agree with that. I'm curious what you think of that.
There was a lot of speculation over who was going to take the mantle of the Black Panther, and no one thought who's going to take the mantle of King or Queen because we didn't know that the Queen was going to die. Right. So now it looks like M'Baku, Winston Duke's character, is going to be the new ruler of Wakanda. From what I gathered from that last sequence, it seems like she was giving up the throne by not showing up there. So it looks like she's going to continue as Black Panther, and he'll be the ruler. Which I don't know if I've ever said this on the show before, but great call. I'm never calling that character Man-Ape, which was his character from the Marvel comics.
Oh shit!
Using M'Baku was a very good call.
Yes,
and also probably my favorite character from both the movies. I just love him. He's a little bit too much like comedy relief in this one, but they also balance that by like having him give this like really wise guidance, which I thought was great.
They almost lost it. You're right. He kind of brings it back there at the end.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to seeing more of him in the next one. I hope that he gets more focus. Oh, dude. Yes. I love it. Shuri, I think, also made sense to be the Black Panther. As far as the script goes, because Lupita Nyong'o's character was gone. She was in Haiti and had not been there for a long time, so it just wouldn't really make sense for her. And also, she's, she's. I don't know that. Neither one of them quite had. No, you're right. As far as the character goes, she was a lot more trained, a lot more physical, a lot more.
She was a spy. And look, she saved the day initially to save Shuri.
she literally fought and well, I guess so did Shuri in the Endgame battles at Wakanda.
True.
But yeah, so I mean, I guess ultimately, whoever ended up getting the Black Panther, we probably were going to be a little dissatisfied, no matter who it was, because it's not going to be Chadwick Boseman.
Maybe that's fair. I just remember sitting there in that moment when she's trying to take the serum, and you're wondering if it might not work because she had that.
Yeah.
And by the way, bring Killmonger back for that.
So awesome.
Afterlife scene was awesome, and that was a great. And that was really well done. That was, and I thought in the moment, like, you know what? I'm not fit to be Black Panther. You should be Black Panther. I thought that would really happen there. And maybe that's what I wanted. So that's my movie I'm trying to create. And I can live with that. I'm a human being. I'm like everybody else. I want this to happen.
Oh, well, how about, speaking of historical stuff, how about Namor killing slavers on Kamienda when he comes back? I mean, how fucking awesome is that, dude?
Yeah, that's sweet.
So great.
That is beautiful. That is badass. And you're right. He could look really lame with the guy with little footy wings, but
instead he's badass.
He is a badass.
Even though the kid that did that was, I mean, like the look in that kid's eyes, great acting. And the score from this movie and the performances from Baba Mal, the Senegalese singer who actually shows up as a funeral singer in this movie. Just goosebumps just thinking about it. So to me, a really satisfactory sequel to the first one, given the challenges that the filmmakers had, Coogler and the rest.
Yeah, it's not a bad movie at all. It was. I think you just lose Chadwick Boseman, it just hurts a little bit, and you're just losing a little something. And I can't wait to see what happens next. I'd like that they're going to work together. It seems like maybe they shouldn't have worked together in the end. That was my other beef, real quick. Going back to that final fight, it feels like it kind of seemed a little forced. So like he suddenly gave in. He's like, I give in, and I'm going, because he was so locked in. He was so locked in. It was questionable there. And even the original lose him.
Yeah, and even the original reason why they're fighting, like he just wants to kill, Ironheart, Riri Williams, and then like he kind of seems to no longer give a shit about that. Like halfway through, it's kind of like, okay, it seemed like a bit of a MacGuffin, but all right.
That's a good point.
Yeah. So not a perfect movie, but I was emotionally invested in it enough that I personally got a lot out of it. Okay, that's fair. So, my number 4 surprised me because I thought it would have been my number 1 or number 2, but on my second watch, I realized I had to move it down a little bit. Loki. I loved Loki. I think Loki is unconventional and brave as far as like storyline goes. It challenges a viewer. It does things that you wouldn't that you got to pay attention. You got to keep up and think about, and it's just, and talk about averting a big explosive battle ending, like to have the last episode be like a conversation basically, and still be just leave the audience enthralled, at least me, in watching these people talk. I thought it was a brilliant show, and it took a character like this was one of the shows I was least interested in. I never was that much into Tom Hiddleston as Loki. I know a lot of people were. I thought he was fine. He was fine. And by the end of this season, I fell in love with the character. So well done.
Hawkeye was a good show. Loki was a good show. WandaVision was a good show. A lot of good shows, but they can't all be in the top 5. Loki was a mind bender and really took us in a new direction for sure. And then seeing what we saw in Endgame, where you get to see the prelude to the Loki show, where he snatches up the oh Christ, which one is it? The blue one, the blue cube that's on the scepter.
The Tesseract.
Thank you, the Tesseract. Jesus Christ, we're idiots. We're not idiots. We're just trying to do the best we can. But
a lot of terminology here.
Jesus, good God in heaven, there's a lot of terminology. It was a great show to watch when I watched it, and having Owen Wilson pop in and having all these, the variants, when the variants episode shows all these, I mean, seeing old man variant, what's his face, was hilarious to me. And seeing him in that yellow.
Oh my God, yes. Richard Grant. Yeah.
Yeah. With the yellow and green Loki outfit, which I've always loved, with the horns.
Yes.
And of course, the alligator. It was funny. It was funny as shit. It obviously, I have seen what's his face in the background of the poster of the new Ant-Man movie. So obviously the Loki is going to come into play in Quantumania. I'm assuming. I don't know what it is because I've seen his
Loki?
kind of no, the bad guy, the overall timekeeper dude.
He who remains.
Yes, he who remains. So
right.
I just saw him in the background of the poster, so he's probably in there.
Yeah, that's been a not well guarded secret.
Yeah, I try to not pay attention to that stuff, but when you see a poster, it's like, well, I can't unsee it. So Loki is funny, plays with time and quantum physics in a way that I think could get a little in the weeds for people where it's like, boy, sure. I'm losing things here a little bit. So maybe that might be confusing for some people and turn people off. But for those of you that want to like use your minds more than just have action, you want to have like an espionage time variant thriller. This is a great show. I just don't know if it'll sneak in my top 5, but it definitely would be top 7, top 10 at worst. It's a really well done show, and I liked where Marvel went in the direction with Loki.
I'll also say that romance in the MCU is something I'm very, very seldomly interested in at all. I can give a flying fuck. This is not why I go to the MCU. Yep. But the love story between Loki and Sylvie in this, I think, is epic. I think they do a great job with it. To have this narcissist only be able to fall in love with a version of himself.
Bizarro.
The untrustworthy and the untrustable. I thought there was a lot of really awesome themes the way that they brought this together, and again, like some historical stuff and time travel stuff they did a fun job with. I just thought it was great. I can understand some people being underwhelmed by it, but for me, it's top notch Marvel.
Yeah, well, learning about the whole time structure. God, I need to watch the show again because I'm forgetting the name of that.
The TVA. Time Variance Authority.
Thank you. That was awesome. I was so into that, and I thought it was so overdue that there was only these few people in charge of the overall construction and movement of time and all the branches and variants and how things can change and how you got it's a detective story too. They're trying to figure things out by going off in these time branches, and there's a lot of elements of Loki. So if you're somebody who's like, you got a lot going on in your mind, you're overly analytical, you'll probably love Loki because you could dissect it and play with it for hours and hours. Yeah. So it's a good show. Having said that, Travis, there's only 3 things left. We're in the top 3 here.
Well, let me finish.
Aren't we?
Yes, but I'm not quite done with Loki because one last thing is that to complain one more time about Multiverse of Madness, the end of Loki, you're seeing that there's like one timeline and then you see this chaos. And you're like, oh, what the fuck is going to happen next? Like, oh my God, what's going to happen next? And the answer is fuck all. Nothing's going to happen. We're going to change all the rules on you. It makes none of that seemingly matters. At least at that point of phase 4, I'll say. So it's not over, but again, like if Kevin Feige is going to be in charge of all this and pull the strings, like maybe folks should listen to him and have the cohesive nature make sense and not just have Sam Raimi go off and do whatever the fuck he wants.
Fair enough. That's a great point. I can't believe that we're in the top 3 and this one's still in there. So go ahead. We'll see when it shows up.
Hawkeyes? Are you talking about Hawkeye? Because that's my number 3. Number 3 is Hawkeye.
Nope.
I know which one you're talking about then. Hawkeye is my number 3, which jumped up greatly on my second viewing. I enjoyed it the first time watching it week to week, but sitting down recently and watching it all in one afternoon, basically, it's so Marvel. It's so dead on, like just hit the nail on the head MCU, it fires on all cylinders. It connects to previous things in very emotional ways. This young girl watching, the day that her father dies, she watches this regular human fighting amongst the gods and being able to keep up with them with a bow and arrow and save her life. And then to being so inspired by him to build up through her life to kind of follow in his footsteps and then meet him and have him be like this curmudgeonly gruff guy who's not very interested in mentoring her. And all of the humor with the Trust a Bro moving company, the what are they called, the sweatsuit mafia, whatever they're called. There's so much about this show, and bringing in White Widow again, Yelena Belova or whatever her name is, the Florence Pugh's character, and Echo as well, and of course, fucking getting Vincent D'Onofrio back as Kingpin, was incredible. I mean, there's so much to me about this show. It just really hit the nail on the head. It's exactly what I want in a Marvel show. Make it feel like a movie, but dragged out. And some of the other ones did not quite achieve that.
Wow. Yeah, that's Hawkeye. I was least interested in watching, of course, because he's Hawkeye. He doesn't always get the respect he deserves. When I finally watched it, I was like, oh, shit. I'm so glad I watched this. This show is really good. And seeing Kingpin with Vincent D'Onofrio was really a highlight for me. Kingpin is a dangerous guy, a big dude. We got to see a taste of him in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which was cool, just to have a taste of some Kingpin. And I like Kingpin as a bad guy. It's kind of simple. He's a fucking criminal. But he's also
a big criminal.
Yeah, he's a big ass criminal, but he's also intimidating and he's menacing. He's holding power over people. To have him brought in was something I didn't know was going to go down. But you're also right about how these two connect. It could be really cheesy for Haley Steinfeld playing Kate Bishop, who's the heir apparent Hawkeye here.
So great.
Yeah, she's rock solid. She's an excellent fit. And, having some of the Ronin stuff mixed in was super cool because
consequences.
Yes. That was, to me, what really elevated this show, because we got such a tiny taste of it in Endgame, and I was like, I kind of want this Ronin movie all together.
yeah.
Which is funny. That's what those movies do. They tease you with so much shit. But to have it come back here and be like, wow, well, we got to deal with this now, and we've got to figure out how we're going to get through all this. Much better show than I thought. This show is also in my top 5. It would be, yes.
Awesome. And I'd like to praise one moment in particular and gripe about one moment in particular. To have the scene where you can actually get like the point of view, and you got this a little bit with Monica Rambeau in WandaVision, but to see the perspective of someone who is dusted in the blip, when Yelena goes into the bathroom and then comes out and 5 years has passed and her host has a fucking baby and like the entire decor has changed. That was so cool the way that they did that. Just really well done. My only real gripe for this movie, actually another piece of praise, I love the Christmas theme. Like having a Christmas,
of course you do.
It's fucking great. But the only real issue I have with this movie is when I watch every time I watch it, which I guess is twice now, but I think about like how torn up Hawkeye was, so destroyed about his family being dusted in the blip that he went on a killing spree across the globe. I just do not see him casually drinking out of a coffee cup that says Thanos was right. I think he throws that cup across the fucking room.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. The way things ended up and like how he is with his family, it does seem like he would be a little bit more passionate. I think maybe it's almost like they chilled it out a little bit. Like, okay, maybe we went a little. Yeah. Well, he's also older, but maybe we went a little too far with like showing how angry he was. I don't know. You're right. That's something that would not happen. I agree.
I love that his hearing is going from all the explosions.
Oh,
and stuff.
yes.
Because again, like he's just a normal human. So for him to be around all this and like he's this grizzled vet, like he's seen his best friend die. He's not his body's not what it used to be. He shows the signs of the wear and tear that you're not going to see in Steve Rogers or Bruce Banner. So I really thought they did a great job with all that.
Thank you for saying that, because I'm just complaining about the Black Widow stuff earlier in the show. You're right. That is how you do it. You show someone who is frail and human and their clock is ticking. That was fantastic. That's another bonus for that show. Yeah,
he's like struggling with whether or not he wants to use his hearing aid and whether or not he wants to learn sign language and all that shit. So well done.
Yep.
Very well done. So let's move on to my number 2, which blows your mind. It blows the lowest ranked film from the Phase 4 that made the least amount of money out of all the films in Phase 4. But I have watched, I think, 4 or 5 times now and loved more every time. Eternals. I love Eternals.
Holy shit. Sell me on this.
I mean, I'm not going to try because either you love it or you don't. I don't think it's my job to sell you on it. If your complaint as a film viewer is that the characters are too close to DC characters or to the Justice League, well, then it's like, well, look into the creation of the characters, because Jack Kirby was very deliberately doing that. That was exactly what he was going for, and the way that they even reference it, like the way that these characters, so like Icarus, for instance, is clearly what Superman is based on, but also clearly what the myth of Icarus is based on. And Gilgamesh, like, actually is a character in this, and you get to see him fight the bull and like all this. I mean, as far as historical stuff goes, it's just steeped in all of these historical instances, and the individual characters themselves are so complex. To have one of the characters, Kingo, played by Kumail Nanjiani, to have one of the characters in the climax of the movie be like, you know what, I'm going to sit this one out and just leave the fucking movie. That is brilliant. Like, they don't give a fuck, man. They're not trying to make some conventional shit that you think is how it should be. These characters are complex, and that the superhero, the Superman version turns out to actually be a villain, but like, again, like, has, Icarus, again, like, he has these motivations that make sense, and the complexity, what they're saying about God with this, the judgment, I love the voice of, what's his name? I'm blanking on the big God, the judge, Arkham or Arsham, I think.
Oh yeah.
The way I love the voice, I love getting to see a Sentinel, getting the way that they approach this, the way that they're making like the hey, God will destroy Earths to like build new Earths, and then like they're like, no, we're gonna fight against God, basically. I think they took some huge swings in this thing, and obviously just a lot of people, it did not land for them, but for some of us, we really dug it, because I know other people love this movie too. I thought it was great. Is
it because Patton Oswalt's in it as Pip the
Troll? Actually, no. I actually am not crazy about him as Pip, because all I hear is Patton, and I thought the CGI was not great.
It's Arishem is the voice of the overall Lord.
He talks like this. I don't know. But I love that voice.
Yeah, maybe I should watch it again, because I watched it and I didn't want to put any labels on it. I see why you appreciate it so much now. It makes all the sense in the world. I mean, they really did try to steep historical records with deities and mysticism and gods and religions and spirituality over the historical record, ancient historical record as well. So, yeah. And it's a fantastical film from the MCU that involves comic characters. It's complex, and I'm gonna go watch it again. That's really what I'm getting out of this, because when I watched it, I absorbed it all, and I tried to keep track of it, and I did love some of the aspects where people, they didn't follow tropes, and is it Athena? Is that what Angelina?
Just Athena, but yeah.
Oh, okay, Athena. Athena's challenges and how Ajax is betrayed, and she seems like there's righteous people who seem righteous, but they're not. You're right. This movie does more for film in a positive way than it does for negatives, and that is always something that rings true with me. So I'm gonna go watch it again, because I did only watch it once. I didn't hate it. I liked it. I just didn't put it in my top 5.
If you've only seen it once, I mean, it's been a while, probably. It's been a year or more since it's come out. And, people complain about Marvel movies or superhero movies not being cerebral. And then they get one, they're like, oh, this is complex. I'm like, it's too weird. Like, I'm sorry. I mean, I thought it was great. Great. And you get these villains that end up not really mattering, because the real villain is the hero the whole fucking time, who set the villains loose. And these villains are pretty well motivated too, because they too have been abused by their god. And so again, just like the moral complexity, the historical complexity of these characters, you just don't really get that in this genre that much. And I love it when you do.
Yeah, I think there are a group of people trying to do things together, but they've been lied to and they've been exploited. And they're also maybe they're not like the big tentpole characters. So people are like, okay, well, maybe I'm not into this as I thought I would be, which is not an excuse at all. We should be willing to go in different directions. Phase 4 did that a lot. They opened up, if Guardians of the Galaxy in its origin was like a big move that actually paid off, then what Phase 4 did is they tried to do that multiple times throughout the phase. And the phase deserves credit for that. And Eternals is a movie that directed by Chloe Zhao. And I want to, she deserves a ton of credit, and I'm going to go back and watch it again, because I think I might bump it up my list.
I think that this is a movie that is going to look better and better as time goes on to people. I think it underwhelmed people at first just because they weren't, because I mean, like, people weren't necessarily into the Guardians, but there's a lot of levity and action there to get you like on board with it. Whereas with the Eternals, you're like, hey, here's here's a father and his husband trying to like figure out how to raise their son. Here's somebody making love, which is kind of I don't know if that was really necessarily needed to be in the movie, but still, like, these are adult things happening in this movie. It's not trying to titillate you. It's like, it's just heavier. So yeah, revisit it. It may not be in your top 5, but I think you might bump it up a little bit. And
I think I might.
I think you might. And can you guess my number 1? Big surprise on my number 1.
This is some type of web-based, not internet-based, but like literally web hands.
The World Wide Web. Yes. Spider-Man: No Way Home naturally is my number 1. Unsurprisingly, perhaps.
Is it?
I mean, it made almost $2 billion. It's one of the highest rated films. Like, it's in the top 10. I think it's number 7 of the most highly profitable films in history. People liked this movie. That said, profit is not always an indicator of quality, as we just mentioned with Multiverse of Madness. But
it is an 8.2, by the way. 8.2 is a really, really good score, and it has almost 800,000 reviews on IMDb.
People love it, and it does all the things that we've been talking about, what we appreciate in these movies, which is that it has heart, it has complexity, it has fun. It's just fun, and it has all these connections to earlier in the MCU, and in fact beyond, like well beyond, into other Marvel films that predate the MCU. So and
it has a better Doctor Strange than the Doctor Strange movie itself.
It really does. It really does. No stupid third eye that he freaks out about for 2 seconds, then immediately gets over. Anyways, it's which is from the comic, but anyways, you're not just going to get over that in 2 seconds and walk around. But yeah, I thought it was great. I know that for some of these guys, it was very much a paycheck. Like, yeah, we'll come back and get paid. And for some of them, it was an important like moment in their lives to like be able to continue to be that character that they had thought that they were going to continue to play and no longer were able to play again. And it was so well received that people want new Spider-Man movies with Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield. And I'd be very happy if that happened. I don't watch any of the Sony Marvel movies because they're fucking trash. But if they plugged in Andrew Garfield or Tobey Maguire, I might start watching them. I would. Who am I kidding? But yeah, and the way that they handled the entire Peter Parker story without really including Uncle Ben, and then to turn it on to Aunt May with her death, and for her to be the one that is the sacrifice that to teach him with great power comes great responsibility. Like, I get like I'm a little verklempt even thinking about it. Like, they did such a great job of making that sacrifice matter, and the way that the brotherhood between the 3 Spider-Men and their very noble superhero way that they're not trying to kill these villains, they're trying to actually save the villains, just so super heroic and really well done.
Yeah, this definitely wouldn't be my number 1. I'm in the minority, I guess, but when I watched it, I said this on the show when I watched it, a goddamn MacGuffin of like trying to figure out everyone's power fix when he's got all the bad guys locked up and he's trying to, I was like, I couldn't get over that. It bothered me, and it still bothers me to this day. Like, oh, here, I'm working on this MacGuffin machine that will fix your powers, Electro, and of course it'll help you, Green Goblin. And,
well, I mean,
it took me out of the movie.
Tobey Maguire's character had like 20 years to think about how he could help the Green Goblin, like literally.
Yeah,
like how much time he had to dwell on that. But I get your point. I mean, maybe a little pat, a little nice, a little neat in some respects, but in other respects, the movie is very chaotic. I mean, there's a lot going on.
There is.
I also love the way it continues exactly where the last movie ended. Izimbra kicks in and like he's like still suddenly dealing with the whole world knowing his secret, which is from the comics. I always kind of wondered if they would have the world find out who he really was, and the way that they handled it, I thought they did a really good job. I can understand this not being someone's number one, but I do think it is among the better Marvel movies, period.
Yeah, maybe there's something with Spider-Man for me. It's not my favorite. And I don't know. I want to be honest about that. That could be clouding my vision a tad. But I've enjoyed Spider-Man movies in the past. So there's something about this trilogy and the Tom Holland Spider-Man where, I don't know. People loved it because it seemed it was more true to the comic in a lot of ways than the previous versions in terms of him being more of like a young, innocent kid, like, oh, I don't know what's going on. And they changed things up in a good way. Like, I love the Aunt May stuff. I was surprised. Like, oh, shit, they really killed Aunt May. Fuck. Okay, cool. That's cool. I'm down with that. And his rage and his anger, and, of course, bringing all the Spider-Men together. I mean, I loved Into the Spider-Verse a lot. Maybe more than all three of the Spider-Man live-action films, which is strange.
I couldn't blame you. It's an incredible movie.
It's really good. Yeah, maybe it's not that. I mean, this one and Spider-Verse, they might stand. I mean, we'll see what they do with the next one here when it's coming out as well. But excited. I don't hate Spider-Man at all. I'm not sure what it is. I loved when they brought Spider-Man back, and he became Tony Stark's right-hand man, and they first brought him in for Civil War and stuff. That was awesome. I loved that. And he was so innocent. A kid from Brooklyn, him and Steve Rogers joking, hey, I'm from Brooklyn. You know, that was cool. So I'm not sure what it is. Maybe I should watch this movie one more time and really lock in on it. I just remember that having his challenges were like the other part was the getting into MIT and suddenly, he's on the outs and nobody wants anything to do with him and he's ruining the lives of his friends. That whole deal, I think I had another beef with that as well because it seemed like, you've done a lot of good things in life and it seemed like it was a little forced to me in a way that I'm not properly describing.
Okay. I mean, for me, it's always been Steve Rogers, Captain America, and Peter Parker, Spider-Man. They've always been like my two favorite Marvel characters. So that could also be part of it. And Ghost Rider, but we haven't really gotten. I mean, Nick Cage's Ghost Rider is fucking awesome. Don't get me wrong, but it's not.
Yeah, that should make you come in your pants instantly. But yet the movies were so bad that it actually isn't.
Yeah, and plus I'm a Danny Ketch guy, not so much a Johnny Blaze guy. But anyway, yeah. But okay. I love it, but I can see where you're not. So I want to hear, what are your top five, bud?
I think my top five, it's really hard for me to put in an order. I mean, I'm impressed you're able to do that. So if you did it, I guess I have to do it. I think my top five will be
from 5 to 1 or 1 to 5.
Yeah, 5 to 1. I'm actually I'm putting Moon Knight at 5. All right. I am. I'm putting Moon Knight at 5. I've got She-Hulk at 4.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Respectable.
I've got that show's grown on me. I've got Falcon and Winter Soldier at number 3.
Okay.
I said I love Falcon and Winter Soldier, so that's not a surprise. And those are all 3 TV shows, by the way, right?
What about the scene where they're like, where they're suddenly in therapy together and they're like knee to knee? Like, what the fuck? Like, what kind of fucking network TV cop show bullshit are you playing here?
It's just funny. Maybe I laughed. Yeah. Maybe I just blocked that out of my memory entirely. That was pretty weird and silly. Yeah.
Like, no therapist is just going to drag some rando in and be like, hey, you know this guy. Why don't you sit down for our last session together?
Yeah, it sounds like an ethical violation. You're right. Yeah, there might be some confidentiality issues there. Okay, so yeah, so 2. Moon Knight 5, She-Hulk 4, Falcon Winter Soldier 3. I'm going to put WandaVision 2, even though it bothered me in the beginning. I know. I and my number 1 is Hawkeye.
So the Disney Plus TV shows really were a home run for you.
Yes. I really thought about it, and I thought about it for like 30 minutes, but still, I'm like, like I said, Spider-Man's not my favorite. It might be like 6 or 7. It might have just missed the top 5 because it was good. Thor, I thought was a mess. Like I said, Black Widow, Doctor Strange was trash. Eternals is interesting. I'm going to revisit. It might crack my top 5 in another review, and I really like Shang-Chi. That's like number 6. That really is. That just so missed. I wanted to put in the top 5. I did, but it could go either way there.
It's understandable. Yeah, it's a good one.
And Black Panthers, like I said, I had some disagreements, so it's like 8 or 9 for me.
Okay. So overall, the phase 4, it's heavy on these themes of grief and loss and trauma, exploring these pretty heavy themes that the MCU hadn't. I don't think that any phase before had like a specific theme that you could identify so clearly as you can with this one. We're very much dealing with the aftermath of Endgame and all that, the loss of people like Black Widow and Iron Man. So I really respect the thematic elements that they were able to weave together here in virtually every aspect of this phase. On the other hand, as we've discussed, it seems like a little bit more attention from the above, from Feige and the like, could have really helped keep this a little bit more organized. We've come to maybe be spoiled to expect really strict cohesion between these projects, and we didn't quite get that with this phase. Even though we didn't get that with previous phases, it was more noticeable this time. So I do hope that there are some course corrections that take place. And judging on what we've heard from the most recent stuff from Feige and the like, is with the changes at the ownership of Disney, it seems like there's going to be a big slowdown of Marvel projects, which is a great call. They need to slow down. Their visual effects people have been suffering and abused, overworked and underpaid, with expectations that have been unreasonable, and the results, such as some in She-Hulk, that were less than favorable. So it'll be better for the shows and the movies overall for them to slow down. And I think that a bit of Marvel fatigue has been creeping in with the populace, and I want to see the same budgets for future projects. So I'd rather them slow down and focus more on quality than quantity anyway.
So I like that there's a lot of stuff that comes out, though. I still like that. I mean, how much of a reduction here? Are we talking like 18 to 12 projects for a phase?
There's, I think, 2 less movies and like a couple less shows is what we're going to get.
I mean, there was a few bloats for me on the TV end that we could have cut out, but I hope they keep at least the same amount of movies. Even if I don't love them in my top 5, I want there to be a couple movies per year.
Well, I think it's going to be 1 or 2 less. I mean, I think it'll probably still be like, I think that's still going to be like 1 or 2 less movies and then 1 or 2 less shows from what I gather. So not super noticeably different, not a tremendous cutback, but enough hopefully to make it manageable for them. I mean, that's partly, you need these checks and balances. You need somebody to step in there and be like, actually, Sam, it's really important that we don't have this character just completely fly off the rails. Let's have her like more gradually take, you know what I mean? Just someone to kind of step in, or more so be like, hey, look, we've been doing all this stuff with parallel universes and the multiverse. Like, if you're going to have a whole movie about the multiverse, perhaps you should watch these episodes of Loki and, follow that.
Well, that's just fucking basic understanding of what you're creating here. Yeah, we want to create something new, but this has to all be organized in a way that makes sense. That not to like just make sense logically, but it's part of character motivations. You have to know the characters. If you're touching base with characters that have already been on celluloid many times before, you need to be aware of what their motivations were. They can change, but the change has to make sense.
You have a responsibility, I think.
Yeah.
And the overall MCU has been done great at that, which is partly why it's a cultural experiment that is paying off in dividends. I mean, the MCU spent, or I guess Disney spent, about $1.5 billion collectively on just the films, not including the TV shows. And the films have made in profit $4 billion. That's a lot. And this money comes from, and this money comes, yes, from people who just love movies, but people love the MCU because of this built story and the foundations that, it's just like, so keep that going. Don't be fast and casual with that, is what I'm thinking. And, after watching Ant-Man Quantumania,
yes.
I will give some limited thoughts on that. And I want no spoilers at this point, of course. I will say that this, compared to some of the other stuff we've looked at, does seem a lot more like it's paying attention to the timelines of Loki and WandaVision and some of the other stuff. There are visual references and things spoken that make a lot of sense. So I felt like that was a strong course correction in that respect. It's getting very mixed reviews. I loved it. I absolutely loved it, but I think it's going to be more a movie for people that are like the hardcore MCU and Marvel fans in general. The casual moviegoer might find it really fucking weird. It's really weird. It makes the car from Ragnarok, from Thor Ragnarok. It makes the car look like I don't know, fucking Pleasantville. It looks really. I mean, it's a weird movie, but I loved it.
Oh, when he's in the seat, you mean? He's going through the.
No, I mean like the planet of Sakaar and like just how weird.
Sakaar. Oh, okay.
Yeah, just how weird that planet is.
I didn't hear the sick on it. Sorry, I just heard car.
Sakaar.
Sakaar.
You know, it's not a spoiler to say that most of Quantum Mania takes place in the quantum realm, and it is a
no shit.
Yeah, and it is a wild place to hang out. If it's fun. So I think it's gonna. I think that might throw some people. I heard one reviewer describe it as a bunch of Marvel screensavers, which is hilarious. But you know, again, like it's very visually effect oriented and.
Well, you love Ant-Man, right? You love the Ant-Man series.
I love both the first two Ant-Man movies. This one feels different than the others because of the location, but it does feel more kind of like Thor Ragnarok a bit to me, just because it's so fucking weird. But I enjoyed it. I certainly enjoyed it.
Well, that's fresh. He just saw that movie this morning, folks. So he didn't know spoilers, but he gave you a little taste of the initial response, that initial feedback. I'm excited to see where things go next. One of my goals will probably be to try to see more of these films in theater again, because maybe not seeing the films in the theater is taking away a little bit from my appreciation. Although it's still I'm seeing it all. I mean, I have a nice television. It's not like a 25-inch black and white television. That was a long time. But we're actually old enough. I had one of those in my room in 1993. But I will say that I'm excited to see where things go now, because we've set up a lot of stuff. There's a lot to set up. So now we're when you do a setup phase after a big apex of Endgame, it's time to see some things come into fruition, which is, I love seeing that. I'm all down with laying the foundation, but it's time to see what happens next. And I hope we get some results. That's all.
Those results are going to be a lot of Jonathan Majors. That's what it's going to be. I mean, like I walked into the movie theater today, walking past Jonathan Majors posters for Creed 3. There was Jonathan Majors Creed 3 previews before the movie. Then I watched Jonathan Majors through the movie. Then I walked out past more Jonathan Majors posters. I'm like, this guy's really become very famous very quickly, and rightfully so. He's an incredible actor, and I loved him in this movie. He brought such a mournfulness to the character I was not expecting. So
this is going to be the Jonathan Majors era. It's like the Dom Hall Gleason era of 2014. Okay, cool.
I mean, he's definitely the new big bad. So we're gonna get quite a bit of him, I think.
Well, that sounds like fun, and hopefully this was fun and useful for you. We had some viewers along the way, even though we promised this episode for a while. And I'm actually glad it came out today, because you got to see Quantum Mania, and I think people would be like, there's probably people jumping online right now. People who are watching wanting to kind of just revel in Phase 4, and maybe already saw Ant-Man today. So I'm glad it worked out the way it did. It's not ideal, but I'm glad we did the show, because there's so much to talk about and dissect, and we should do more episodes like this where we dissect other parts of film more specifically than just like one movie. So this is a unique world. MCU is a fun place, and even though it has its challenges, it's always going to be a fun place to talk about what's going on with it.
Yeah, I really had a lot of fun talking about it with you today. It's something I've been wanting to do for 3 years almost, or whatever, now that we've been doing the show, to really dive
wow,
deeply.
What a culmination. You talk about being patient with the MCU. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, every episode we've done almost, I'm wearing a Marvel t-shirt and not talking about Marvel movies. So it's nice to finally be able to really dig deep into this shit with you. Still
surprised by it's fascinating what ends up being the top 3 for you and what was mine. So I'm glad that you laid out that list in the way you did. And that's what's fun about this stuff, folks. We get to make our own opinions of what we see as like the highlights and the lowlights, and what really touches us and what we dismiss as outright trash, although there was very little outright trash at all. So
I liked everything except for one film that I made very clear I didn't care for.
And Groot's just shorts, so who cares? All right, well, hey, that was fun. That's the MCU Phase 4 review from Travis Roy and Michael Govier of the Cinema 9 podcast. We thank you for watching, and if you're seeing this for the first time, subscribe to our channel, give us a like on the video, and if you're hearing this for the first time, which we were posting it in audio form, of course, for our podcast listeners, give us a 5-star review. You know how that works. You're not foreign to these territories. You've been here for a while, haven't you? Probably.
Probably.
Okay. All right. Well, hey,
everyone.
Travis, that was fun. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.